The first time I heard the name Anna that night, my husband was standing 6 feet away from me telling 200 people that after 40 years of marriage, there was nothing left about me he didn't know. Everyone laughed. I did too. And then from somewhere behind me, a man's voice said, "Anna?" My champagne glass stopped halfway to my lips. Not Evelyn. Not Mrs. Carter. Not Mom. Anna. For 32 years, that name had belonged to a life I never talked about. I had never told my children. I had never used it on anything official. And I had certainly never expected to hear it spoken in the middle of my 40th wedding anniversary. For a moment, I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Because some words reach your ears. Others reach a place in your body that remembers before your mind does. Anna? He said it again. Closer this time. My daughter Rachel touched my elbow. Mom? I looked down. Champagne had spilled over the rim of my glass and was running across my fingers. You okay? Yes. The answer came too quickly. Behind us, the jazz trio kept playing. Crystal chandeliers glowed above white linen tables. Silver balloons floated near the ceiling. 200 friends, relatives, former co-workers, neighbors, and people Daniel had known through business were celebrating what everyone kept calling an extraordinary achievement. 40 years. On the screen behind the stage, photographs from our marriage moved slowly from one to the next. Our wedding. Rachel as a baby. David asleep on Daniel's chest. Family vacations. Christmas mornings. Hospital rooms. Graduations. 40 years reduced to smiling photographs. And then someone had said the one name that did not exist in any of them. I turned. He was standing near the ballroom entrance. Older, of course. His hair had once been almost black. Now silver ran through it heavily. His shoulders were narrower. There were deep lines beside his mouth that hadn't existed the last time I'd seen him. But I knew him immediately. Michael Hale. Some people fade slowly from memory. Others remain exactly where you left them. Michael was one of those. He stood still, watching me with the same unsettling expression I remembered from 32 years ago. As though he'd entered the room already knowing something everyone else was about to discover. Rachel followed my eyes. Do you know him? I didn't answer. Because that was when I looked at Daniel. My husband was still standing near the stage. A few seconds earlier, he'd been smiling. Now he wasn't. And that frightened me more than seeing Michael. Daniel did not look confused. He did not look surprised. He looked caught. Michael took one step toward us. Evelyn. This time he used my real name. Carefully. Almost apologetically. I set my glass on the nearest table. What are you doing here? Rachel looked between us. Mom, who is this? Michael looked at her. Something softened in his face. You must be Rachel. Rachel's expression changed immediately. How do you know my name? Michael didn't answer. His eyes returned to me. You look like Claire. My sister's name landed almost as hard as Anna had. For years, people in my life had known Claire only through photographs and stories. My older sister. Gone too young. A family tragedy. Michael had known the real Claire. The woman who slammed cabinet doors when she was angry. Who sang too loudly in the car. Who stole my sweaters and denied it while wearing them. Who died at 35 before any of us learned how to talk honestly about what happened. I felt Rachel move closer. Mom? Before I could answer, Daniel reached us. His hand settled against the small of my back. To anyone watching, it probably looked affectionate. After 40 years, I knew the difference between affection and pressure. Evelyn? Daniel looked at Michael. Then at me. Who's your friend? Michael gave a small, humorless smile. Friend might be generous. Daniel's fingers stiffened against my back. I stepped away from his hand. Across the ballroom, a few people had started watching. My son David was still near the bar speaking to his wife. My oldest friend Marianne had turned in our direction. Whatever this was, I didn't want 200 witnesses. I lowered my voice. Michael, if you came here to talk about the past, this is not the place. I know. Then why are you here? His eyes moved past me. Toward Daniel. That was the second moment something inside me shifted. Michael had called me Anna. He had mentioned Claire. But before answering my question, he looked at my husband. I received an invitation. I turned toward Daniel. He said nothing. Daniel? His expression tightened. Not here. Michael looked at him. You're the one who chose here. Rachel stared at her father. What does that mean? Daniel exhaled slowly. This doesn't need to become a scene. A scene? I looked at him. A man I haven't seen in 32 years walks into our anniversary, calls me by a name no one here should know, and apparently you know why he's here. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Michael reached inside his jacket. Daniel's body changed almost imperceptibly. Tighter shoulders, sharper eyes. For one second, I thought Michael might be reaching for an old photograph. There had been photographs once. One in particular I had hoped no longer existed. But he pulled out an envelope. Cream-colored, soft at the edges, yellowed with age. My heart seemed to miss a beat. There was handwriting on the front. I knew it before I could read it. Some people say you forget someone's handwriting after they die. You don't. Not your sister's. Not after you've kept every birthday card she ever gave you. Michael held the envelope between us. I could see 2 words written across the front. Anna Mercer. Rachel leaned closer. Who is Anna Mercer? I couldn't answer. I was looking at Daniel. Because again, he wasn't confused. His eyes went to the envelope as though he had seen that name before. Michael noticed too. He looked at Daniel, then back at me, and his expression changed. You really didn't tell her? My throat went dry. I turned fully toward my husband. Tell me what? Daniel's jaw tightened. Evelyn, we should go somewhere private. No. He blinked. I don't think I had interrupted him that sharply in years. Tell me what? Michael lowered the envelope. For the first time since he'd entered the ballroom, he looked uncomfortable. Like a man who had just realized he had walked into the middle of a marriage carrying a match. Daniel said quietly, This is not how I wanted you to find out. A cold sensation moved through me. Find out what? No answer. Behind us, someone tapped a microphone. A cheerful voice announced that our anniversary cake was ready. People began applauding. 40 years of marriage. 200 guests. And my husband could no longer look me in the eye. I looked at Michael. Why are you here? He glanced once at Daniel. Then he said the sentence that changed the entire night. I came because Daniel called me. The applause behind us seemed to disappear. I looked at my husband. He didn't deny it. 32 years ago, I had buried Anna Mercer because I believed that part of my life was over. But Daniel had somehow found her. And instead of asking me who she was, he had gone looking for the one man who might know. I came because Daniel called me. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood Michael. Not because the words were unclear. Because they did not belong inside the marriage I thought I had. I looked at Michael, then at Daniel, then at the old envelope in Michael's hand. My sister's handwriting. My old name. My husband's silence. 3 things that should never have existed together. Daniel called you? Rachel said it before I could. Daniel glanced toward the ballroom. We should take this somewhere private. No. His eyes came back to mine. Evelyn. You invited a man I haven't seen in 32 years to our anniversary. You don't get to decide when this becomes private. Rachel folded her arms. I'm not leaving either. Daniel exhaled slowly. Michael held out the envelope. You should take this. Where did you get it? Claire gave it to me. The name tightened something inside my chest. When? Before she died. I stared at him. You've had a letter from my sister for 32 years? Yes. And you never gave it to me? No. Why? She gave me instructions. I was already beginning to hate hesitation. Every pause seemed to contain another piece of my life someone had decided I wasn't ready to hear. Give it to me. He did. Across the cream-colored envelope in Claire's handwriting were 2 words. Anna Mercer. Rachel leaned closer. Mom, who is Anna? I ran my thumb over the paper. I was. She stared at me. What? I used that name for a while. When? When you were little. Why? I needed to get away. From Dad? Daniel answered. No. I turned toward him. That wasn't your question. Rachel frowned. Then from what? From being Evelyn Mercer. Michael spoke quietly. Claire knew about the name. I looked at him. That's impossible. I chose Anna in Oregon after Claire died. I know. Then how could she have written it? Because you didn't invent it there. A memory stirred. When Claire and I were girls, we used to imagine running away whenever our father was angry. Claire invented dramatic names for herself. I always chose Anne, my middle name. One night, Michael said, she asked what name you'd use if you really had to disappear. The answer came back before I wanted it to. Anna? Michael nodded. She remembered. For 32 years, I had believed Anna was a name born from grief. Claire had carried it for me long before I needed it. Rachel whispered, "So Aunt Claire used Anna as a code?" "Yes." "For Mom?" "Yes." "Why?" Michael looked toward Daniel. "Stop looking at him," I said. His eyes returned to mine. "Because Claire was trying to protect something." Daniel said, "Something connected to a trust." I turned. "What trust?" He hesitated. "How long have you known about this?" "About 6 months." Rachel stared at him. 6 months? 6 months. Christmas. Our granddaughter's birthday. A weekend away together. Little questions Daniel had asked that I now realized might not have been casual at all. "How did you find Michael?" Michael answered for him. "He hired someone." I looked at my husband. "A private investigator?" Daniel's jaw tightened.
"Yes."
Rachel stared at him. "You hired someone to investigate Mom?" "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" Daniel lowered his voice. "I received an old trust document. Anna Mercer was listed on it." "That makes no sense." That was my reaction. "So you hired a stranger to investigate me?" "I hired someone to investigate Anna Mercer." "You knew Anna was me." He looked away. "Yes." That answer hurt more than I expected. "What were you looking for?" "Financial records." Something inside me went cold. "You thought I was hiding money." "I thought there might be something you hadn't told me." "How much?" "If the assets still exist, possibly several million." Rachel whispered, "Several $1,000,000?" I kept my eyes on Daniel. 40 years of marriage. One unexplained document. And he had decided to investigate the woman sleeping beside him. "You could have asked me." "I didn't know what I was asking." "You knew enough to pay someone." "I needed facts." Facts. Somewhere along the way, Daniel had stopped treating me like a wife and started treating me like a question that needed verification. "What did the investigator find?" Michael, old Oregon records, a photograph, connections to Claire." "And?" "That Claire had used Anna Mercer before you did." I turned to Michael. "Why?" "Not for money." Daniel looked at him sharply. "That's what you keep saying." "Because that's what you keep getting wrong." I stepped between them. "What was Anna for?" Michael looked at me. "Claire needed a name she could attach to something without using yours." "What?" "She was afraid that if certain records were found, your real name would put you directly in the middle of them." A chill moved through me. "What records?" "Claire's letter explains more." Rachel looked at the envelope. "Are you going to open it?" My fingers moved toward the flap, then stopped. "Not here." Daniel exhaled. Relief. I saw it. "Why are you relieved?" "I'm not." "You are." "There's a private sitting room down the hall." I looked at him. "You've known about Anna for 6 months." "Yes." "You found Michael." "Yes." "You thought I might have hidden millions of dollars." "Yes." "And you never once asked me why I became Anna." Daniel said nothing. I turned to Michael. "Do you know?" "Yes." "Immediate." "Certain." "Then tell me." His face became serious. "Not until you understand why Claire was afraid." "Afraid of what?" His eyes moved toward Daniel. Daniel went still. Michael said, "The night Claire died, I wasn't the last person she went to see." Everything inside me stopped. "Then who was?" Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because when I turned toward my husband, Daniel's face already had. For several seconds, none of us moved. Michael stood behind me. Rachel was beside me. Daniel was directly in front of me. And suddenly the past no longer felt 32 years away. It felt as if it had been waiting just outside the ballroom doors. I looked at Daniel. "The night Claire died, were you with her?" His face tightened. "Yes," Rachel whispered. "Dad?" I raised one hand. "Not yet." Then I turned to Michael. "You said you weren't the last person Claire went to see." "I wasn't." "Then where did she go?" Michael looked toward Daniel. "To him." Behind the ballroom doors, people began applauding. Probably the cake. 40 years of marriage being celebrated, while I stood in a corridor realizing my husband had hidden one night from me for more than 3 decades. When did you see her? A little after 10. Claire's accident was reported at 11:47. I knew that number. I knew all the numbers from that night. 9:18, 9:26, 9:41. The 3 times Claire called me. 12:34. The state troopers at our door. Some nights fade. Others remain minute by minute. Why did she come to you? She needed help. With what? Michael answered. Your father's company. Mercer Development. My father. Claire. The unanswered calls. Suddenly they all belong to the same story. I looked down at the envelope. If you want me to explain Anna, then you need to understand what happened after Claire died. And I was 32 again. Claire had been dead 4 days. I was standing in my parents' kitchen washing the same coffee cup over and over because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. People filled the house behind me. Neighbors. Employees. Family friends. Everyone had a sentence for grief. Your sister was special. She's in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. That last one made me want to scream. The official explanation was simple. Wet road. Sharp curve. Too much speed. Her car broke through a barrier and went down an embankment. An accident. But the thing I remembered most wasn't the police report. It was the telephone. Claire called at 9:18. David had a fever. Rachel had an ear infection. Daniel was working late. I saw Claire's name and thought, I'll call her back. She called again at 9:26. Then 9:41. The 3rd time I picked up the receiver. David started crying from the bathroom. I put the phone down before saying hello. Claire never called the 4th time. For years, I believed those 3 calls were the last chance I had to save her. And guilt is patient. It waits until the house is quiet. Then it asks, what if you had answered? After the funeral, my father wanted the family to move forward immediately. That was Henry Mercer's language. Responsibility. Continuity. Legacy. Words that made control sound respectable. Claire had worked inside Mercer Development for years. Within weeks, my father wanted me involved in what she had left behind. One afternoon, he called me into his office. Documents covered the conference table. I don't want this. This isn't about what you want. It is if my name is on it. Claire understood her responsibilities. Don't use Claire to do this. His face hardened. Someone has to deal with what she left behind. At the time, I thought he meant business. Now I wasn't so sure. I left without signing. That evening, I told Daniel what my father wanted. He asked, how much money is involved? I don't know. How can you not know? Because I don't care. He watched me, then said, okay. For decades, I remembered that as concern. What I didn't know was that Daniel had already seen Claire the night she died. He already knew she had questions about my father's company. And he said nothing. By spring, I stopped sleeping. I forgot appointments. One morning, Rachel found me sitting on the bathroom floor. Mommy, are you sick? Yes. It was easier than explaining grief. A week later, Aunt Margaret called from Oregon. My mother's older sister. Widowed. Independent. The only person in the family who could tell my father to go to hell and make it sound sensible. Come stay with me. I have 2 children. Bring them. I have a husband. Daniel will survive 2 weeks. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. Daniel agreed. At the airport, he kissed me. Don't worry about anything here. At the time, it sounded loving. Aunt Margaret lived outside Ashland in a cedar house surrounded by trees. No Mercer Development. No empty chair where Claire should have been. For the first few days, I slept. Then one afternoon, my aunt found me staring at unopened letters from my father. You know you don't have to be who he says you are. I don't know who else to be. What was your middle name? Anne. Close enough. To what? Someone else. It was a joke. At first. A few days later, I went into Ashland alone. At a bookstore, the woman behind the counter handed me a customer card. Name. Address. Phone. I stared at the blank line, and without planning it, I wrote, Anna Mercer. The woman looked at it. Anna? Yes. Nice to meet you. That was all. But for the first time since Claire died, someone looked at me without seeing a grieving sister. A Mercer daughter. Daniel's wife. Rachel and David's mother. For 5 minutes I was simply Anna. I walked outside and cried in my car, not because I missed Claire. Because for those 5 minutes I hadn't. That frightened me. And relieved me. So I kept the name. At the library. At a pottery class. At a small cafe. Nothing official. Just a private room inside myself where grief didn't know how to find me. Evelyn called Daniel every night. Anna belonged to no one. 2 weeks became a month. Then 6 weeks. Daniel came to Oregon once. On the second morning, he found a pottery receipt on Aunt Margaret's kitchen counter. Who's Anna? I took it from him. Someone no one wants anything from. He stared at me, then asked, "When are you coming home, Evelyn?" For 32 years, I treated that moment as unimportant. Standing in the hotel corridor now, I knew better. You saw that receipt? Yes. So when you found Anna Mercer in the trust 6 months ago, you recognized the name? Yes. He had not discovered a stranger. He had reopened a door I had once shown him. I turned to Michael. When did you find me in Oregon? About 7 months after Claire died. How? Claire left me a clue. His eyes dropped to the silver pendant around my neck. This? He nodded. She borrowed it before she died. I remembered. A week before the accident, Claire had asked for the pendant. 2 days later, she returned it. Michael said. She hid a note inside. What did it say? Ashland, Margaret. My breath caught. She wasn't predicting where you'd go, he said. She knew that if something happened to her, your aunt was the one place you might run. The childhood name. Oregon? Aunt Margaret. Claire had connected the pieces before I ever needed them. I went because Claire told me to find you if she couldn't. Memory returned in fragments. Rain against Aunt Margaret's windows. Michael at the kitchen table. Cold coffee. Me asking whether Claire had suffered. Then a question I had almost forgotten. Do you trust Daniel? I stared at Michael. You asked me that. Yes. Why? Because Claire had mentioned him. Daniel went still. She said Daniel had helped her understand some financial records. I turned toward my husband. You were helping Claire? A few times. With my father's company? Questions, nothing more. Michael said, that night in Oregon, I almost told you Claire had gone to Daniel after she left me. Why didn't you? Because you were barely functioning. So you decided what I could handle? Yes. The honesty stopped me. You told me you couldn't survive another secret. And suddenly I remembered saying it. I don't care what Claire found. I just want to go home and be someone's mother again. You should have let me decide. Yes. Then I looked at Daniel. So should you. He said nothing. Anna had not been an affair. She had not been a hidden fortune. She had not been another life. Anna was the person I became when being Evelyn felt impossible. But Claire had known the name before I needed it. Michael had known. Daniel had known. And both men had decided which truths I was strong enough to hear. I held up Claire's sealed letter. From now on, I decide what I know. Then Michael said, There's one more thing. Of course there is. The night Claire died, she didn't leave me and drive home. My pulse changed. She went to Daniel. I looked at my husband. Michael continued. And before she died, she called him again. Daniel's face tightened. What did Claire say? He didn't answer. But I knew then that something had happened between Claire leaving Daniel's office and her car going off that road. Something my husband had spent 32 years trying not to say out loud. The private sitting room was at the end of the hotel corridor, far enough from the ballroom that the music became a dull pulse behind the walls. Rachel entered first. Michael followed. Daniel came in last and shut the door. I stayed standing. Claire's letter was still sealed in my hand. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Daniel said, There's something you need to understand about Oregon. I looked at him. I think everyone here understands Oregon better than I do. That's not what I meant. Then say what you mean. He pulled out his phone and opened an old scanned photograph. Then he turned the screen toward me. I recognized Aunt Margaret's porch immediately. Rain-dark cedar, white railing, and 2 people standing beneath the porch light. Me. And Michael. His arms were around me. My face was against his chest. Rachel looked at me. Mom? I stared at the photograph. I had forgotten it existed. Daniel watched me. That's what the investigator found. I handed the phone back. And? His jaw tightened. You were in Oregon using another name with a man you never told me about. Michael shifted. You're making it sound like something it wasn't. Daniel looked at him. I'm describing what I saw. No, Michael said. You're describing what you were afraid it meant. I stepped in. Enough. Then I looked at Daniel. Was there something between Michael and me? Yes. The question came out more like an accusation than a question. I answered anyway. No. Daniel didn't move. I repeated it. No. Rachel looked between us. Then why is he holding you like that? Because 32 years ago, I had just learned something I had spent months refusing to hear. I sat down. It was raining. Daniel frowned. That doesn't answer. I'm answering. The room went quiet. I looked at Michael. You came to Aunt Margaret's house after dinner? Yes. You looked terrible. So did you. I hated you. I know. Rachel asked quietly. Why? I answered without looking away from him. Because Claire loved him. Rachel turned toward Michael. He said, We were engaged. That surprised Daniel. He stared at him. Engaged? Michael looked back. You didn't know? Daniel said nothing. For 6 months, he had investigated Michael Hale and still misunderstood the most important relationship in Michael's life. Not me. Claire, Michael continued. We argued the night Claire died. She was frightened about something she had found inside Mercer Development. The financial records, Daniel said. Yes. She wanted me to leave town with her for a few days. I thought she was overreacting. His voice changed. I was wrong. I remembered the Oregon kitchen. Rain against the window. Coffee going cold. Michael telling me Claire had believed someone was watching her. I had told him to stop. Stop making it worse. She's dead. Nothing you say changes that. Michael looked at me. You told me to leave. I remember. What happened after that? Rachel asked. I closed my eyes for a second. I went outside. The memory came back. Cold rain. My coat half buttoned. My hands shaking. I asked Michael one question. Did she know I loved her? He said yes. And I broke. Not gracefully. Not quietly. I collapsed against the porch railing and Michael caught me. That was the photograph. Not desire. Not an affair. Just grief. I looked at Daniel. That's what you spend 6 months wondering about? He looked away. I didn't know what to think. You found one photograph and built a whole version of me around it. That wasn't the only thing. What else? He hesitated. A note in the investigator's file said Michael asked you to leave Oregon with him. Rachel looked at me. I turned toward Michael. Did you? Yes. Daniel's face hardened. There. Michael ignored him. I asked her to leave for a few days because I thought she might be in danger. From what? I asked. From whatever Claire had uncovered. You wanted me to run? To Seattle. I knew someone Claire trusted there. A lawyer? Someone she was considering speaking to. That changed the room. Claire had not just been frightened. She had been preparing to act. Did I go? Michael shook his head. No, you said you had 2 children, a husband, a life. I remembered. I'm done running. I want to go home. At the time, home had meant Daniel. Safety. Normal. I looked at him now and wondered what he had already known when I came back. Rachel asked Michael, Did you have feelings for my mother? Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I loved Claire. That isn't what I asked. I know. He looked at me. Then back at Rachel. I cared about Evelyn because Claire loved her. In Oregon, she was grieving and trying to stay alive for 2 small children. He paused. That was all. Daniel said, You expect me to believe that? I turned to him. You don't have to believe Michael. His eyes met mine. You have to decide whether you believe me. Silence. That was the real question. Not the photograph. Not Oregon. Not Anna. Me. After 40 years, did my husband believe me when there was no document to verify the answer? He looked down. And that hurt more than I expected. I turned back to Michael. You said Claire thought someone was following her. Yes. And after she left you? I drove after her. Daniel looked up sharply. How far? About 10 minutes. Why did you stop? I lost her at a light. Did you know where she was going? No. Michael looked at me. Later I learned she went to Daniel. I felt the room tighten. Why? Because she needed someone who understood the numbers. I looked at my husband. Michael said, Claire trusted Daniel with financial questions. Then his expression changed. But she didn't trust him with everything. My fingers tightened around the sealed envelope. What does that mean? Michael nodded toward it. That's why she wrote the letter. I slid one finger beneath the flap. Daniel stood. Evelyn. I stopped. He looked pale. What? If you're going to read that, there's something I should tell you first. Michael's face hardened. No. Daniel looked at him. She should hear it from me. 32 years late. Stop! Both men went quiet. I looked at Daniel. What do you need to tell me? His voice dropped. The police asked me when Claire left my office. My pulse slowed. And? I gave them a time. What time? 10:25. Michael stared at him. Daniel continued. That wasn't true. Rachel's hand closed around mine. What was true? Daniel swallowed. She was still with me after 10:30. How long? A pause. Until about 10:35. I looked at him. Claire had left Danielle at approximately 10:35. And sometime after that, before she died, she had called him again. I looked down at the envelope, then back at my husband. And finally I opened Claire's letter. Claire's letter began with my name. Not Anna. Evelyn. That alone tightened something in my throat. For 32 years, I had imagined what I would say to Claire if I ever had one more conversation with her. I had never imagined she had already left one for me. The paper trembled slightly in my hands. Rachel sat beside me. Michael stood near the window. Daniel remained across the room. I read the first page. Claire wrote that if I was reading the letter, then something had gone wrong. She told me not to trust the first explanation anyone gave me. Not my father's. Not Michael's. Not even hers. Then I reached one sentence and stopped. Asked Daniel why he changed his story about 10:37. I lowered the letter. Daniel looked like a man who had been waiting 32 years for that sentence. What happened at 10:37? He sat down slowly. Claire called me. You said she left your office around 10:35. She did. So 2 minutes later she called? Yes. From where? Her car. What did she say? Daniel rubbed his hands together. She said someone had started asking questions about the records she showed me. What records? Payments inside Mercer Development. My father's company. Claire had worked there for years. Daniel had been an accountant. Of course she had taken the numbers to him. How long had you been helping her? A few weeks. A few weeks? She brought me copies. At first she said she only wanted a second opinion. Copies of what? Transfers, trust payments, money moving through companies she didn't recognize. And you never told me. She asked me not to. I stared at him. Apparently everyone in my life had rules about what I was allowed to know. Daniel lowered his eyes. You were already overwhelmed. That was not your decision. I know. I looked back at Claire's letter. What did she think she had found? She wasn't sure. She believed money was moving through accounts your father controlled, but some of the beneficiaries didn't make sense. Was Anna one of them? No. Then when did you first see Anna Mercer? 6 months ago. The trust document that started his investigation. Michael folded his arms. So Claire kept part of the picture from you too? Yes. Daniel looked at him. She didn't trust anyone with everything. That sounded like Claire. Even as a girl, she hid important things in more than one place. But this wasn't a game. I looked at Daniel. What happened the night she died? She came to my office a little after 10. Why? She had more documents. Did she give them to you? Yes. Where are they? He didn't answer. My stomach tightened. Daniel! I still have them. Rachel stared at him. You've had Aunt Claire's records all this time? Yes. Where? A safe deposit box. I felt something cold move through me. You kept documents my sister gave you the night she died. I didn't know what they meant. You knew they mattered enough to hide. Daniel flinched. Yes. Why? He looked at me. Because Claire told me that if something happened to her, I should give them to you. The room went completely still. She told you to give them to me? Yes. If something happened to her? Yes. She died that night? Yes. And you kept them? His voice dropped. Yes. Rachel stood. Dad, why? Daniel looked older than he had an hour earlier. Because the next morning Henry came to see me. My father. I felt my jaw tighten. What did he know? That Claire had been at my office. How? I never knew, Michael said quietly. She thought someone was watching her. Daniel nodded. Maybe she was right. What did my father say? He said Claire had become unstable, that she was making accusations about the company, that if I gave anyone those records, I could destroy the family. That sounds like him. Daniel hesitated. He also knew about something else. I waited. What? His eyes met mine. Claire and I kissed. Rachel froze. Michael's face hardened. For 1 second, I heard nothing but the muted music beyond the wall. When? 2 months before she died. Once? Yes. Did you sleep with her? No. Did you have an affair? No. Michael started to speak. I raised one hand. No. I kept my eyes on Daniel. Why did you kiss my sister? He swallowed. I was helping her late one night. We argued. She was frightened. I was angry. That isn't an answer. No. He looked down. I was attracted to her. The words hurt, but not as much as what came next. She stopped it almost immediately. It never happened again. I studied him. And my father knew? Yes. He used it against you? Yes. Daniel's voice went quiet. He said if I gave you Claire's records, he would tell everyone I had been sleeping with her. He said the police would think I had a reason to lie about the night she died. Rachel looked at him. That's why you changed the time? Daniel nodded. Yes. I felt sick. The police asked when Claire left your office. Yes. And you said 10:25 instead of 10:35. Yes. Because my father told you to. Daniel shook his head. Because I was afraid. There it was. Not innocence. Not some perfect excuse. Fear. What happened at 10:37? Daniel stared at the carpet. She called from her car. What did she say? She asked whether I had told anyone about the records. And had you? His silence answered first. Daniel, I had called Robert Mills. Michael looked toward him. Why? I wanted legal advice. Robert had been Daniel's friend for decades. Even back then he had worked around my father's business. What did you tell him? That Claire had found irregular payments. Did you tell him she had copies? Yes. The room went cold. Claire had called Daniel because she believed someone knew, and Daniel had already told Robert. I looked down at the letter. Claire had written, if Daniel tells you he was afraid, believe him. But fear does not make silence harmless. I read the line twice, then looked at my husband. You kept her records for 32 years. Yes. You changed your statement. Yes. You let me believe her 3 calls to me were the last important calls she made. His eyes filled. Yes. I folded the first page carefully. What happened after 10:37? Daniel looked toward Michael. At 10:52, Claire called him. Michael's face changed. I noticed immediately. You? He nodded. What did she say? Michael looked at the floor. Then at me. She said he knows I copied it. A chill moved across my skin. Who is he? Michael shook his head. She didn't say. Daniel glanced toward the second page of Claire's letter. But I think she was trying to tell you. I turned the page. At the top in Claire's handwriting was one name. Robert Mills. Robert Mills. I read the name twice. Then I looked at Daniel. You called Robert before Claire died. Yes. And 6 months ago, when you found Anna Mercer in that trust, Daniel's expression changed. I called him again. Of course he had. Robert had been part of Daniel's life almost as long as I had. He was the attorney Daniel trusted with contracts, estate questions, business disputes. He had attended Rachel's wedding. He had spoken at Daniel's retirement dinner. And now Claire's letter had placed his name inside a secret that began 32 years ago. What did Robert tell you? Daniel leaned forward. That depends which time you mean. Start 6 months ago. Rachel sat beside me. Michael stayed near the window. Claire's letter rested in my lap. Daniel began. In February, an envelope arrived at my office. From whom? No return address. What was inside? A photocopy of an old trust schedule. The one with Anna Mercer? Yes. Anything else? One note. What did it say? He looked at me. Ask your wife. 3 words. That was all it had taken. Not a confession. Not proof. 3 words, and Daniel had started questioning 40 years of marriage. What did you do? I checked the document first. Then, I called Robert. Why? He knew Mercer Development. He knew your father. He had handled old family matters after Claire died. Michael turned from the window. And what did he say? Daniel hesitated. That the document looked genuine. My stomach tightened. He knew the trust? He said he remembered the structure, not the details. What structure? A private family trust connected to something called Harrow Holdings. The name meant nothing to me. Harrow? Daniel nodded. It appeared in several old Mercer records. Michael's face sharpened. I've seen that name. Daniel stared at him. Where? In Claire's notes. You never told me that. You never asked until 6 months ago. I looked between them. No, we are not doing this again. They both stopped. I pointed at Daniel. You continue. He did. Robert told me not to assume the trust meant you had hidden anything. He said old family trusts sometimes used protected names or contingency beneficiaries. That sounds reasonable. It did. But you still hired an investigator. Daniel looked down. Yes. Why? Robert recommended one. That made me look up. He recommended the investigator? Yes. Her name was Rebecca Sloan. Discreet. Experienced. Good with old corporate and probate records. Daniel gave her the trust document. The name Anna Mercer. The old Oregon references? Enough information to connect the pieces. I listened without interrupting. This had not been one impulsive decision. It had been a process. Calls. Invoices. Reports. Weeks of questions. All while Daniel came home every night and sat across from me at dinner. What did Rebecca find first? Oregon. The bookstore. The pottery class. Michael's motel record. The photograph Daniel had already shown me. Nothing criminal. Nothing financial. Only evidence of a part of my life I had never explained. Then she found the trust history. I waited. Anna Mercer was added as a protected beneficiary shortly before Claire died. How shortly? About 3 weeks. Michael went still. I looked down at Claire's envelope. She added me? We can't prove Claire personally filed it. But it happened while she was investigating my father's company. Yes. And she already knew the name Anna. Yes. Rachel whispered. So Aunt Claire was protecting Mom. No one answered. Because that was exactly what it looked like. What else did Rebecca find? Harrow Holdings? Daniel spoke more carefully now. It had been created years before Claire died. Money moved into it through Mercer-related accounts. Large amounts? No, regular payments, quiet ones. Who owned it? That took time to figure out. I gave him a look. Simple version. He nodded. Your mother appears to have authorized it. My mother? That surprised me more than my father's name would have. My mother, Eleanor, had spent most of her life avoiding conflict. Or so I had believed. What was Harrow paying for? At first, Rebecca couldn't tell. What changed? She found a beneficiary name. Another name. Of course. Who? Catherine Doyle. Nothing happened inside me. No memory. No recognition. Who is she? I didn't know. Rachel asked. Employee? No. Relative? Not one we could identify. Michael moved closer. Then why did the name matter? Daniel looked at him. Because Harrow was paying for her. What kind of payments? Living expenses, medical costs, education. I frowned. For how long? Years. Authorized by my mother? Yes. I stared at him. And Robert knew? Daniel paused. What? When Rebecca found Harrow, I called Robert. And? He said he had seen the name before. Michael's jaw tightened. So he lied the first time? Daniel nodded. He said he simply hadn't remembered. Did you believe that? At first. The irony almost made me laugh. Daniel had needed documents before believing his wife. Robert needed only a vague explanation. What happened next? Rebecca started pulling older Mercer Trust records. Daniel paused. Then Robert called me. Before you called him? Yes? What did he say? That I was digging into things that had already caused enough damage. Michael turned fully toward him. Those exact words? Almost. I felt something cold move through me. Robert did not just know the past. He knew what Rebecca was doing now. Did you keep investigating? Yes. Why? Daniel looked at me. Because by then I knew Anna wasn't about an affair. The answer was honest. Not flattering, but honest. I still thought it might be about money, then it stopped looking like money. What did it start looking like? He looked toward Claire's letter. Like Claire had been protecting a person. Rachel asked, Catherine? Maybe. Michael said, Was Claire connected to her directly? Daniel nodded. Rebecca found an old file reference showing Claire had requested information about Harrow shortly before she died. That was enough. Claire, Harrow, my mother, Catherine Doyle. All of it converging in the final weeks of Claire's life. And Robert? His name appeared on old correspondence connected to the trust. There it was. Not proof of murder, not proof of some enormous conspiracy, but proof that Robert had been close enough to the secret to know far more than he admitted. I looked at Daniel. Did Rebecca trust him? No. The answer came quickly. What did she say? That every time she found something new, Robert seemed to know about it before I told him. The room went quiet. Michael asked, When did you realize Robert might be part of this? 3 days ago. 3 days before our anniversary? Yes. And you still brought Michael here tonight. I thought he might know why Claire used Anna. Michael gave a bitter laugh. So I was another piece of evidence. Daniel looked at him. No. Then why tonight? Daniel turned to me. Because I felt like I was running out of time. What does that mean? Before he could answer, his phone vibrated. All four of us looked at it. Daniel checked the screen. Rebecca. Answer it. He put the call on speaker. Rebecca? Her voice was low and hurried. Daniel, are you with Evelyn? He looked at me. Yes. Good. Then stop calling Robert Mills. Rachel went still. Michael stepped closer. Daniel said, Why? I found something he didn't want me to find. What? Paper moved on the other end. Rebecca took a breath. Harrow Holdings wasn't created by Henry Mercer. I looked up. Then who created it? A pause. Eleanor Mercer. My mother. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Rebecca continued. And the trust wasn't designed to hide money from the family. What was it designed to do? To support someone. Catherine Doyle? Yes. I gripped the arm of the chair. Who is she? I don't know yet. Then what did you find? Another pause. Longer this time. When I pulled the earliest records, I thought the date had been entered incorrectly. What date? Catherine Doyle's date of birth. Something in Rebecca's voice made my skin tighten. Daniel said, Rebecca. She answered quietly. June 14th, 1962. I stopped breathing. Rachel looked at me. Michael stared. Because June 14th, 1962 was my birthday. Rebecca continued. Evelyn, Catherine Doyle was born the exact same day you were. And for the first time that night, the secret no longer felt like something Claire had discovered about money. It felt like something she had discovered about me. For a long moment, no one spoke. Catherine Doyle. Born June 14th, 1962? My birthday. Rachel reached for my hand. Mom? I barely felt her. I was still staring at Daniel's phone, as if Rebecca might say one more sentence and make the date less impossible. She didn't. I stood. We're going home. Daniel looked up. Evelyn? We're going home. No one argued. Less than half an hour later, I was on the floor of our bedroom with my mother's dark walnut jewelry box open in front of me. Rachel knelt beside me. Daniel stayed near the doorway. Michael stood a few feet away. I hadn't opened the box in years. After my mother died, I took out the things I remembered and packed the rest away. Pearls, old photographs, a brooch, letters from my grandmother, things I had thought were sentimental. Now I wondered which of them had been hidden for a reason. I moved through old envelopes until I found a pale hospital card folded beneath a stack of photographs. My mother's name was printed at the top, Eleanor Mercer. Below it were 2 lines, Infant A, Evelyn. Infant B. A name had been crossed out. Beside it, written later, was another name, Catherine. I stopped breathing. Rachel read over my shoulder. Oh my God. Daniel stepped closer. What? I held up the card. There were 2. Michael closed his eyes briefly. I looked at him. Did Claire know? She suspected. Suspected what? That you had a twin. The word sounded impossible even while I was holding the proof. A twin? Yes. Where was she? Michael shook his head. Claire didn't know for certain until the last year of her life. Rachel whispered. How could someone hide a twin? Michael looked at me. Henry. Of course. My father had controlled money, business, reputation, information. I looked at Daniel. Did you know? No. His answer came immediately. And for the first time that night, I believed him without hesitation. That almost hurt more. I opened another envelope. Inside was a short letter in my mother's handwriting. My hands began to shake. I read the first line silently, then aloud. Evelyn, if you ever find this, then Claire was right. Secrets do not stay buried forever. There were 2 babies. You and Catherine. Your father told me Catherine would not survive. I believed him. Later I learned she had. I stopped. The room tilted slightly. My mother had believed her own child was dead. I forced myself to continue. By the time I discovered the truth, Catherine was already being raised elsewhere under another name. Your father refused to bring her back. He said the truth would destroy the family and everything he had built. I let him decide. I will regret that for the rest of my life. I lowered the page. No one spoke. I asked, Who raised her? Michael answered, A woman named Margaret Doyle. I looked at him sharply. Not Aunt Margaret? No, different woman. That was enough. I didn't need another story tonight. I looked back at my mother's letter. After Eleanor learned Catherine was alive, she secretly created a financial arrangement to support her. Harrow Holdings. Not to hide stolen money. Not to protect a fortune. To pay for the daughter she had failed to protect. Medical bills. School. Rent. A life kept at a distance. Rachel whispered. So Harrow was for Catherine? Yes. The answer came from me. And suddenly Anna made sense too. Claire had needed a name she could place inside certain records without writing Evelyn Mercer. Anna wasn't a fortune. Anna was a shield. I looked at Michael. When did Claire find Catherine? About a year before she died. How? She followed the Harrow payments. And she met her? Yes. My head lifted. You knew? Claire told me. What did Catherine know about me? Michael's expression softened. That you existed. My throat tightened. Did she want to meet me? Yes. The word came immediately. Yes, he repeated. She wanted to meet you. That broke something open inside me. I looked down at the hospital card. A woman born the same day as me. A woman who knew I existed. A woman I had never been allowed to know. Why didn't Claire bring her to me? Because she wanted proof of what Henry and Robert had done before she exposed everything. Robert. There it was again. I looked at Daniel. He was involved? His name appears on old trust paperwork. Michael nodded. Claire believed Robert helped Henry keep Catherine hidden. I turned back to my mother's letter. There was one final paragraph. Claire knows now. She found Catherine before I could tell you myself. She says Catherine wants to meet you. You deserve your sister. I stopped reading. Rachel was crying quietly beside me. I wasn't. Not yet. The grief felt too large for tears. I had spent 32 years grieving Claire. Now I was learning I had lost another sister without ever meeting her. I looked at Michael. Is Catherine alive? His face changed. And I knew. No. When? On 2002. I closed my eyes. 40 years old. 8 years after Claire, I had been alive, raising children, celebrating birthdays, and somewhere my twin sister had died knowing I existed. How? Cancer. No conspiracy. No road. Just life. Somehow that made it worse. Rachel squeezed my hand. Did Catherine leave anything? Michael nodded. Claire arranged for her to make a recording. A recording? For File 17. I looked at him. What was File 17? Claire's backup. For what? The truth. He kept it simple. One place where statements and records could be preserved in case someone tried to rewrite what happened. I thought of Daniel's changed police statement. The hidden trust. The letter in my hands. What did Catherine say on the recording? I never heard it. Then where is it? Michael shook his head. I didn't know. Daniel looked toward the jewelry box. Maybe Eleanor did. I searched again. Beneath the photographs was a narrow wooden divider. It shifted when I pressed it. Behind it was a hidden compartment. Inside lay a black cassette tape. No one moved. I picked it up. Michael's face told me before he spoke. That could be it. Rachel stared at the cassette. What's on it? Before anyone could answer, my phone vibrated. Rebecca. I put her on speaker. Rebecca? Her voice was tense. I found the last call record from the night Claire died. My fingers tightened around the cassette. What call? She called Catherine. The room went completely still. When? 11:14. I stared at the tape in my hand. Claire had called me 3 times. Then Daniel. Then Michael. And before she died, she had called the sister I never knew existed. Rebecca continued. The call lasted 6 minutes. My voice was barely a whisper. What did they talk about? I don't know. I looked at the cassette. Maybe the answer had been sitting in my mother's jewelry box for years, waiting for me to finally listen. David arrived with an old cassette player 20 minutes later. Rachel had called him on the way home and told him enough to make him come. Not enough to explain why his mother was sitting on the bedroom floor holding a cassette that might contain the voice of a twin sister she had never known. David looked at me. Mom? I'm okay. No one believed that sentence anymore. I handed him the tape. Play it. He inserted the cassette. A click. Static. Then a woman breathed into the microphone. My entire body went still. Her voice sounded like mine. Not exactly. Softer. Younger. But close enough that Rachel looked at me in shock. The woman said her name was Catherine Doyle. Then, if Evelyn ever hears this, tell her I knew about her before she knew about me. I closed my eyes. Catherine said she had grown up knowing there was another girl somewhere who had been born the same day. She had been told almost nothing, only that her real mother was alive. That asking questions caused trouble. Then Claire found her. She walked into my apartment and stared at me, Catherine said. A faint laugh. Then she said, "You have Evelyn's eyes." My hand moved to my face. The recording continued. Claire had explained Harrow. The payments. My mother's involvement. My father's decision to keep Catherine hidden. Then Catherine's voice became more serious. She told me someone inside the family was frightened that she had found me. Daniel stepped closer. Robert? I looked at him. Let her finish. Catherine said Claire had begun leaving copies of records with her. Not because Catherine understood the finances, because Claire wanted documents outside Mercer Development. She said if anything happened to her, people would try to make everything sound complicated. A pause. So I'll make my part simple. The room went silent. Claire believed Robert Mills helped Henry keep me hidden. Daniel closed his eyes. Catherine explained that Robert had handled paperwork connected to Harrow for years. He knew Catherine existed. He knew where the payments went. And when Claire began asking questions, Robert began asking questions too. Michael stepped toward the cassette. That's what Claire meant. I looked at him. He knows I copied it. Michael nodded. The words from Claire's final call finally had a name. Robert. Then Catherine described the call at 11:14. The final 6-minute conversation Rebecca had found. Claire told her she had seen Daniel, that Daniel had helped her understand some of the records, that she had made copies. Then Catherine said, "She told me Daniel had spoken to Robert?" Daniel sat down. His face had gone pale. I looked at him. Catherine continued, She wasn't angry with him. She said he probably thought Robert would help. Daniel whispered. I did. Claire believed Robert now knew she had copied enough documents to prove Harrow existed and that Catherine had been deliberately hidden. She was taking the remaining papers somewhere safe. Catherine tried to convince her to stop driving and call the police. Claire refused. She said she wanted one person outside the family to see everything first. Then Catherine's voice changed. She told me a silver car had been behind her twice. Daniel looked up. Michael's face tightened. She said she might be imagining it. A pause. Then she said she didn't think she was. I felt cold. Claire had been followed. But even Catherine was careful. Claire had never said someone planned to kill her. Only that Robert wanted the copied records back. David asked quietly, "What happened after that?" Michael answered, "She crashed about half an hour later." I looked at Daniel. "What did Robert say when you told him about the records?" Daniel took a breath. He told me Claire was emotional, that I should stay out of Mercer family business. And after she died, he came to my office. With my father? No, alone. That was new. What did he want? The documents? Michael stepped forward. You never said that. Daniel kept looking at me. He said the records belonged to Mercer Development. He said keeping them could make me look involved. Did you give them to him? No. Why not? Because Claire told me to give them to you. I stared at him. You didn't give them to me either. No. What did you do? I put them in the safe deposit box. Fear again. Not destroying the truth. Not telling it. Just hiding it where no one had to choose. Michael explained that Claire had asked Catherine to record her account, and after Claire died, my mother added her own statement before hiding the tape. The cassette clicked. Then another voice began. My mother. Older. Weaker. Eleanor said, "If Evelyn hears this, there is something she must understand." I stopped breathing. Claire did not die because Evelyn missed 3 telephone calls. My eyes filled instantly. My mother continued. Claire did not die because Michael argued with her. Michael lowered his head. She did not die because Daniel made one terrible mistake. Daniel covered his mouth. She died after years of secrecy made everyone afraid of the truth. A tear slipped down my cheek. Eleanor said Robert had threatened her after Claire's funeral. Not with violence. With scandal. With exposure. With the destruction of Catherine's privacy. The same language my father had always used. Protect the family. Protect the name. Protect everyone by keeping everyone silent. Then came my mother's final sentence. Secrets do not protect families. They teach families how to be afraid. Click. Silence. No one moved. I looked at Daniel. You knew enough. Yes. You knew Claire had records. Yes. You knew Robert wanted them. Yes. You knew my father threatened you. Yes. And you let me spend 32 years believing I failed Claire because I didn't answer the phone. His face broke. I was ashamed. You should have been. He nodded. I know. I stood. My legs felt weak. My voice did not. You didn't kill Claire. Daniel looked at me. No. But you helped make sure the truth died with her. He closed his eyes. For years I had imagined that learning the truth would give me one person to blame. Instead, it gave me something harder. A controlling father. A calculating lawyer. A frightened husband. And a sister driving alone with copies of the truth while a car followed behind her. I looked at Daniel. You had 32 years to tell me. His answer was barely audible. I know. And for the first time that night, there was nothing left for him to investigate. Only something for me to decide. By the time David left the room, the sky outside our bedroom windows had begun to lighten. Not sunrise. Not yet. Just that thin gray hour when night stops pretending it can last forever. Rachel went downstairs to make coffee. Michael followed her. For the first time all night, Daniel and I were alone. He sat on the edge of the bed. I stayed in the chair across from him. Between us on the floor were my mother's jewelry box, Catherine's cassette, Claire's letter, and 32 years of silence. Daniel looked at the papers. I don't know what you want me to say. I almost laughed. That may be the first honest thing you've said tonight. He looked up. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Good. I mean it. I know. He rubbed his hands together. No trust documents now. No investigator. No Robert. Just us. I leaned forward. Why didn't you tell me? I was afraid. 32 years ago? Yes. That explains one night. He looked down. What about the next morning? No answer. What about after Claire's funeral? His jaw tightened. What about after my father died? Silence. What about after my mother died? Still nothing. Then I said, What about 6 months ago, Daniel? He looked at me. That's different. No. I shook my head. That's the part that matters most. His expression changed. I don't understand. I can understand being 35 and terrified. Henry threatened you. Claire had died. You had kissed her. You thought one wrong move could destroy everything. Daniel flinched. But 6 months ago, Henry was dead. He said nothing. Claire was dead. Still nothing. My mother was dead. I held his eyes. And when Anna Mercer appeared on that document, you had another chance. To do what? To ask me. His face tightened. You didn't. No. You hired someone. Yes. You searched my past. You found Michael. You studied photographs of me in Oregon. Yes. You investigated a name I had once explained to you. Daniel looked away. I knew then that he remembered the pottery receipt. Anna Mercer. Someone no one wants anything from. You had 40 years of marriage sitting across the breakfast table from you, I said. His voice was quiet. I know. And you chose evidence before conversation. He started to object, then stopped. Yes. That answer hurt because it was finally clean. No defense attached. I asked, What were you actually afraid of? Daniel stood and walked toward the window. For a while, he said nothing. Then, that Anna was real. She was real. I know. No, you still don't understand. He turned. Anna wasn't another woman. She was me when I couldn't survive being Evelyn. I understand that now. But 6 months ago? He stared at the gray light outside. I was afraid she was the version of you who could leave. The sentence landed quietly. I waited. Daniel continued. When you went to Oregon, I told myself it was grief. I told myself the name meant nothing. Then 32 years later, I saw Anna Mercer inside a trust. And you thought? That maybe she had been more than grief. More how? A life you could have chosen. Without you. He nodded. Yes. I sat back. There it was. Not money. Not Michael. Not even the trust. Fear that somewhere inside me there was a door Daniel could not control. He moved closer but did not touch me. I thought maybe there had been money or Michael or some plan I never knew about. And instead of asking whether I had ever wanted another life, I tried to prove that you had. I looked at him. You weren't trying to find the truth. He waited. You were trying to find a version of the truth you could survive. His face tightened. Yes. And while you were doing that, you forgot something. What? You weren't dealing with a suspect. I paused. You were dealing with your wife. Daniel's eyes filled. I know. You keep saying that. What else can I say? I don't know. That was the worst part. For most of the night, I had wanted answers. Now I had them. And answers did not repair anything. Daniel sat across from me again. I love you. I looked toward Catherine's cassette. My father probably told my mother he loved her too. Daniel flinched. Don't compare me to Henry. I'm not. I looked back at him. I'm telling you that love doesn't make control disappear. I wasn't trying to control you. You decided what truths I could handle. He went still. You decided I was too fragile to know about Claire. Then 6 months ago, you decided I might be lying before you ever gave me a chance to tell you the truth. Daniel lowered his head. And every decision made sense to you while you were making it. Yes. That's what scares me. Outside, the room was growing lighter. I thought of Claire, Catherine, my mother, women whose lives had been rearranged by other people claiming silence was protection. I looked at Daniel. I can forgive fear at 35. He looked up. I don't know if I can forgive suspicion at 67. The words seemed to take something out of him. Are you leaving me? I looked toward the bedroom door. I'm leaving this room. For how long? I don't know. Evelyn? No. I stood. For once, I don't want you to solve it before I've decided what I feel." He said nothing. I picked up Claire's letter and Catherine's cassette. At the doorway, I stopped. 40 years. Children. Illness. Funerals. Vacations. Arguments. Ordinary mornings. A marriage was not one lie. But neither was it protected from one simply because it had lasted a long time. Daniel looked at me. "I'm sorry." I believed him. That was not the same as forgiving him. "I know." I opened the door. Rachel stood in the hallway holding 2 cups of coffee. Michael was farther back. Neither asked what had happened. I took 1 cup from Rachel, then looked once more at Daniel. "I'm not leaving the marriage today." His shoulders dropped slightly. "But I am leaving long enough to hear my own voice." I stepped into the hallway and closed the bedroom door behind me. For the first time since Michael had called me Anna in the ballroom, I wasn't thinking about Claire's secret. Or Catherine. Or Robert. I was thinking about the question Daniel had never asked me. "What do you want?" And this time I intended to answer it before anyone else did. 3 months later, I was living in a furnished apartment 10 minutes from the house where Daniel and I had raised our children. It wasn't dramatic. No hotel suite. No new life in another state. Just 2 bedrooms, a small balcony, a kitchen with cabinets I would never have chosen, and a quiet I had forgotten could exist. For the first few nights, I barely slept. Not because I missed Daniel. Not because I didn't. Because after 40 years, silence sounded unfamiliar when it belonged only to me. Daniel and I began counseling 2 weeks after the anniversary. Once a week. 50 minutes at a time. No investigators. No documents. No one asking for proof. Just questions. Some were harder than anything Claire had left behind. Do you still love him? Yes. Do you trust him? Not the way I did. Do you want the marriage to end? I don't know. That answer frightened Daniel at first. Eventually, he stopped asking me to change it. The investigation into Robert Mills continued without us. He gave a formal statement after Claire's records were authenticated. He surrendered his law license while investigators reviewed his role in hiding Catherine and trying to recover Claire's records. Whether criminal charges would follow was no longer something I waited for. The old documents confirmed enough of what Catherine and my mother had recorded to make denial difficult. Harrow had supported Catherine. Robert had helped my father keep her existence hidden. He had known Claire was collecting records. And after Claire died, he had tried to recover them. What happened on the road that night could never be reconstructed perfectly. No one could prove Robert caused the crash. By then, I no longer needed this story to become a murder in order for the truth to matter. Claire had been frightened. People had followed her questions. Daniel had stayed silent. My father had built a family where fear was mistaken for loyalty. That was enough. Michael called occasionally. The first time, neither of us knew what to say. Then he told me a story about Claire burning Thanksgiving rolls so badly that she buried them in the backyard before our mother could see. I laughed until I cried. For the first time in 32 years, I remembered my sister without remembering the road first. Michael and I did not become something romantic. We became what we should have been all along. 2 people who had loved Claire differently and carried guilt neither of us deserved to carry forever. Rachel helped me organize Catherine's photographs. There weren't many. A school portrait. A picture beside a lake. One taken in her late 30s, wearing terrible red shoes and laughing at whoever stood behind the camera. I framed that one. Sometimes I still stopped when I passed it. The resemblance was unmistakable. Not identical. But enough. Enough to make me wonder how it would have felt to sit across from her. Whether we would have liked each other. Whether she drank coffee the way I did. Whether she hated olives. Small questions. Ordinary questions. The kind sisters are supposed to have time to answer. One afternoon, Daniel came to the apartment carrying a banker's box. He placed it on my dining table. "What is it?" "Everything." Inside were Claire's records from the safe deposit box. The original financial copies. Her notes. Daniel's old calendar. A copy of his police statement. The photograph from Oregon. And one pottery receipt. Anna Mercer. I held it for a long time. Daniel stood across from me. "I should have given you all of this 32 years ago." "Yes." "I should have asked you 6 months ago." "Yes." He nodded. No defense. That was new. "I don't expect you to come home because I'm finally doing what I should have done." "Good." He almost smiled, then stopped himself. I'm trying to learn. I looked at him. You may learn and still lose me. I know. I might forgive you and still leave. His eyes filled slightly. I know that too. For once, he didn't ask me what that meant for us. He simply left the box and went home. That mattered. More than I expected. A week later, I went back to the bookstore in Ashland. Aunt Margaret's house had been sold years before, but the town still smelled the way I remembered it after rain. I walked into a small bookstore. Not the same one. Close enough. A young woman behind the counter asked if I needed help. No. I wandered until I found a blank journal. At the register, she asked, Would you like a receipt? Yes. Name? I almost said Evelyn. Then I stopped. For 32 years, Anna had been the woman I became when I needed to disappear. A private room. A place without demands. A version of myself Daniel had once feared because he thought she might leave him. But Anna had never been someone else. She was the part of me that remembered I was still mine. Anna, I said. The young woman typed it in. I smiled. Not because I was hiding. Because I wasn't. I left the bookstore and stood outside beneath a gray Oregon sky. Claire was gone. Catherine was gone. My mother was gone. The truth had arrived too late to give any of them back to me. But it had arrived in time for something else. Choice. Daniel and I were still in counseling. I still didn't know whether our marriage would survive. Maybe it would. Maybe it wouldn't. For the first time, uncertainty did not feel like failure. It felt like freedom. I spent most of my life believing intimacy meant knowing everything about another person. Now I understood something different. Love does not give you ownership of someone's past. And fear does not give you permission to investigate what you were too afraid to ask. Anna had once been the name I used to disappear. Now she reminded me I didn't have to. And neither did Evelyn. If you were in my place, what would hurt more? The secret Daniel kept for 32 years, or the fact that 6 months ago he still chose suspicion instead of asking his wife the truth? Tell me in the comments whether you could forgive him. And if this story stayed with you, please like the video and subscribe for more stories about family secrets, marriage, and the truths that change everything.